When somebody takes the decision of learning to speak English, he or she knows that it's going to be necessary to invest a good amount of time to succeed. However, it's possible that there is not a very clear idea of how long it's going to take exactly to do it. We are accustomed to the advertisement of companies and the English academies to say some things, for example, learning English in just 3 months with our learning method. Also, intensive course to speak fluent English in 6 months, 1 year, or even 2 years. Definitely, we have to invest time to get a good fluency. But how can we find the necessary time to study when we have a life full of daily activities? This is what I'm going to explain in this video. I had tried during too many years to learn English using several methods without any success. But then I had the opportunity to learn some things that allowed me to reach an acceptable level of fluency in English and attain a specific goal in the language. The time administration to learn English is not about creating a detailed schedule of all the daily activities where we are going to set specific hours to study grammar, speaking, reading, and all the things that are practiced in the English language. This is because our life is full of unforeseen activities that occur all the days, which we cannot neglect only because at that moment we have to study English. So to reach the objective of speaking fluently in a relatively short amount of time requires to learn new skills that are possible to think that have no relation with learning the language, but that are vital to succeed. Let's see what is this about. If you really want to learn English, there is something super important that you have to ask to yourself in this moment, and it's the following. What is my motivation to learn English? The answer to this question is everything. You have to define the motive, the reason, the purpose for which you are willing to deal with this so hard process of acquiring a second language. Because when the motivation is strong enough, there is always going to be something that will push you to continue practicing, even when the English seems something impossible to learn. The motivation can be the dream of solving your money problems, the dream of giving a better lifestyle to your family, that car that you want so much, the fact of being bilingual, the willingness of wanting to make some friends that don't speak your native language, impress a beautiful girl, or any other motive that you can think about. But you have to find your motive, what makes you move forward, the thing that makes you to dedicate the time to study a grammar book without caring how boring it is. Here is where the art of making time to learn English starts, because the first step is to take the time to find your most important reason to do it. Now the question is, how do I find my motivation? This is a difficult question, even more taking into account that all of us are different and our motivations can be opposite, even with people that we think have a lot in common with us. In my case, the way of finding my motivation was learning how to do it through the teachings of professional motivational coaches. I did it watching their videos on YouTube, reading their books, and also listening to audiobooks. More than finding a motivation to do something, it's about learning the skill of how to self-motivate to yourself using these resources. From the coaches that I am sure you can learn how to self-motivate are the speakers Camilo Cruz, Alex Day, Omar Villalobos, and Miguel Angel Cornejo, among some others that I can mention, but they were who helped me out the most at the beginning. In the description of the video, I'm going to leave the links to their YouTube channels for you to watch the content they share. Of course, in this one I'm just mentioning motivational coaches that share their knowledge in Spanish, because when you are starting out in the English language, it's a nonsense to watch the videos of motivational coaches that only speak in English. This is going to be possible along the way, while you are getting better in the language. There is something important that I have to mention. Remember that this is the English version of the video that is already in Spanish in this channel, and because of that, I am talking about Spanish-speaking motivational coaches. But I will also leave in the description of the video some links to channels of motivational coaches in English for people who can't speak Spanish. I really appreciate your understanding for this. In this one I have put so much emphasis in self-motivation and the way of how to acquire this skill, because when you have the ability to self-motivate to do something, you don't have the necessity of external rewards nor somebody else's uplifting words to continue forward. It's enough to take the decision to do it. To get to this level in life will definitely change a person's life. Okay, now let's talk about the time specifically to acquire the English language. But firstly, we need to take into consideration what is commonly believed the administration of time is when learning English. It's commonplace to think that to reach a good level of fluency, we have to study 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or even more. But here is where the first error is, because the time to learn English is not measured, not even in days. Think about this. One day has 24 hours, which about a third part are dedicated to sleep, some others to eat, take a shower, work, and do all the things that a person does during a normal day. Well, somebody only can use a little amount of time during the day to study English. Having this clear, we have to say that the time to learn to speak English is going to depend on the amount of hours and even minutes dedicated to practice it. Something very important with respect to this is that it is not about following a strict activity schedule where we have to follow fixed hours to study English. Not at all. English is more interesting to learn it if we know how to include it in our daily activities. Remember that a language is about knowing how to communicate our thoughts through the correct order of the words and with the proper sounds. Also, it's about understanding what people say through our ears and of course knowing how to read and write about the things we like. These are things that we do all the days. Why not practice the English doing all these things? So it doesn't matter how many activities somebody could have, there is always going to be some little chunks of time that we can use to learn. In some occasions, there will be only a few minutes that can be used to practice English, but that can be accumulated during the day. It's about identifying those valuable moments of time that are not utilized that all of us have throughout the day, and also knowing how to use them with the proper practice in English. It can be done listening, speaking, reading, or writing in English. Of course, are necessary some hours dedicated to the intensive study of things like grammar, vocabulary, or pronunciation. But if you want to speak English naturally, they are just a part of all the things you have to do. For example, in addition to the hours of intensive study that I have just mentioned, the following are moments in which you can acquire the English in a natural manner and almost without realizing it. For example, when you go in the car or in the bus, you can go listening to an audiobook in English about self-motivation, personal success, or a science fiction story. You learn something new, and at the same time you are training your ears. This is another example that may sound funny, but it's real. Too many people never go to the bathroom without taking their mobile phone, sometimes just to play things like Candy Crush or just to watch videos on YouTube. So instead of doing that, while you make what you have to make, you can watch an English class on YouTube or you can read a book in English. Why not? Can you imagine the face of your mom when she hears that you are repeating words in English while you make, well, you know. Another example will be this. While you watch a movie, instead of watching it in Spanish or your native language, you can do it with English audio and subtitles. And now I can assure you that there are a myriad of examples that I could say where you can take advantage of your daily activities to study and improve in English. It's about using your imagination to find those so valuable minutes that can be found throughout the day. It could be by combining the practice with another activity or replacing any bad habit that is wasting your time. Without realizing throughout the day, you can accumulate up to 3 hours of effective study. Now you know that the time to learn English is measured in the amount of hours and minutes that you are dedicating to it. It's never going to be about the days, months, or years that somebody can say it takes to learn it. That is only self-deception. Lastly, I have to mention something that is extremely effective when making time to learn English. I am talking about learning how to set goals. There are so many books about this topic and it will not be possible to talk about it in this video. I think I will make a video about this in the future. Of course, always related to learning English. By now, I'm going to leave some links in the description to some videos that will help you out to start with the goal setting process. Although the big goal is to speak English fluently, there are a lot of small goals that can be established to reach the final objective. I already talked about this in the video, why do you need to start to learn English on your own? But for instance, these small goals can be to speak fluently in a job interview, complete a cell, talk with a friend, give a presentation, or any other specific scenario like this. Also, it can be to read a book, learn a song, or any other thing you can think about. The objective is to divide the final goal into small goals easier to achieve. This is going to save you a lot of time to not waste your valuable time studying things that will not take you to accomplish with the small goals that make up the big goal. Don't forget that when you know where you are going, you will also know how to get there. I hope this information is going to be useful for you. I see you in the next video that is going to be about the Spanglish dictionary that I mentioned in the previous video. I see you soon.